Welcome to my Hemra Story channel. During the camping trip, my boyfriend sang "Today You're Going to Marry Me" with his ex-girlfriend. Under the glow of the fireworks, he even gave her a bouquet of red roses. All our friends and classmates were watching me, waiting for my reaction. However, I simply smiled and led the applause, wishing them happiness. Our story begins. Gavin Ray and I had finally managed to take some time off for a trip, but he insisted on bringing his ex-girlfriend, Clara Vance, along. I firmly disagreed, but he didn't listen to me. Worse yet, they left me at the highway service area and went off on their own. At that moment I felt both sad and angry, but thankfully the police helped me get home. When I returned home, instead of comforting me, Gavin mocked me for being a troublemaker. I was furious when I heard that, and told him directly that he couldn't let go of Clara. After he accused me of being petty, he slammed the door and left. We ended up in a cold war for more than half a month. This morning, Gavin suddenly smiled at me and admitted that he was also at fault. He suggested that we go to the mountaintop to watch the sunrise together, and even prepared a tent and snacks, making it seem like he wanted to reconcile with me. However, I knew he might be doing this because his parents are coming to Jiangcheng. I often found myself backing down first after arguments with Gavin. I couldn't stand the silent treatment, so I would prepare his favorite food and softly ask for his forgiveness each time. However, the more I did this, the more it seemed to have made Gavin accustomed to it, and he started to feel that I was being unreasonable. He knew I loved him and couldn't live without him, which led him to take advantage of my feelings. I felt like he had a firm grip on me, as I repeatedly humbled myself for that little bit of love. Recently, I've experienced a subtle change in my feelings. My enthusiasm and excitement for Gavin seemed to have faded. So when he invited me to watch the sunrise again, I simply responded with a gentle okay and then retreated to the quiet of the guest room. In the past, the anticipation of watching the sunrise with Gavin felt like the brightest star in the night sky, guiding me. Every time I brought it up with excitement, he always had various reasons to decline. Clara's invitation, however, could completely transform him, prompting him to dress up and even share photos of them together on social media. It felt as if a blinding light had been cast in my heart, preventing me from sleeping and leaving me restless. He always used the excuse of a friend's gathering to try to ease my anxiety and doubts. But this time, I decided to take a different approach. Coming out of the guest room, I discovered that Gavin was nowhere to be found. He still hadn't shown up that evening as planned. I didn't rush to call him or send a concerned message as I usually would. Instead, I calmly arranged for a taxi, packed my luggage, and went to the mountaintop by myself. Along the way, I encountered many nature lovers seeking inner peace. We exchanged stories and dreams, and the warmth and companionship of strangers made me feel an unprecedented sense of ease and comfort. Upon reaching the summit, I found a cozy spot to rest and let my thoughts drift away with the gentle breeze. The orange morning light softly filtered through the sparse clouds, gently caressing my cheeks and bringing warmth and tranquility. I joyfully captured the beauty of this moment and shared it on my social media. As I was casually scrolling, I came across a video that Clara had shared in our class group. The video was taken at a concert, where she recorded a beautiful male voice singing harmoniously with a gentle melody. That voice was very familiar to me. Without a doubt, it belonged to Gavin. Yet at that moment I felt an unusual calm within me. There were no waves of emotion or pain, nor was there any surprise. Similar scenes have played out many times in my memory, like the twinkling stars in the night sky. I have grown accustomed to their presence. So what does it matter if it happens again? The only difference is that I won't be calling Gavin anymore, nor will I lose my composure and ask him why he left me for Clara. I no longer need to ask. When I returned home, I found that Gavin was already back. In the living room, there was a beautifully packaged gift box with a tempting sheen sitting on the coffee table. However, it didn't pique my curiosity. Instead, I went straight to the bathroom and, after taking a shower, walked into the spare bedroom for a nap. Deep down, I already knew that the gift box wasn't for me. It was meant for Clara, prepared by Gavin. Memories flooded back, reminding me of a time when a similar scene had stirred my feelings. It was my birthday, and the gift box on the coffee table made me think that it was a surprise from Gavin for me. I was eagerly looking forward to seeing it, but he suddenly pushed me aside, hurriedly took the gift box back, and told me it was for Clara, asking me not to overthink it. That was really rude. The next day, although he did send a birthday gift to make up for it, the disappointment and embarrassment still linger in my heart. At this moment, the tranquility of the second bedroom became my best refuge. Just as I was about to drift off to sleep, I heard a slight sound of the door opening outside. Was it Gavin? Does he want to apologize to me? These thoughts briefly flashed through my mind but were quickly overshadowed by a deep fatigue. I couldn't be bothered to think about it and soon fell back into a deep sleep. As night fell, I woke from my dreams and noticed the exquisite gift box on the table, identical to the one on the coffee table during the day. I saw a note underneath the box, which was an apology and explanation left by Gavin. She wrote, "Sorry, Alara Quinn. I didn't greet you yesterday, and left you to watch the sunrise alone. Clara got 2 tickets to a concert of my favorite singer from a friend, so I went with her. Don't think too much about it. I promise I'll take you to watch the sunrise next week." I gently shook my head, a faint bitter smile appearing on my lips, and I lost interest in the contents of the gift box, sliding it into the drawer. I have my own thoughts on whether watching the sunrise alone is lonely. In fact, the lack of constraints makes me feel at ease and comfortable. When I think of that concert ticket, memories rush back like a tidal wave. I was once filled with enthusiasm, going through ups and downs to buy 2 tickets through unofficial channels, eagerly looking forward to sharing the excitement and joy with Gavin. However, his indifferent response instantly shattered all my hopes. Since then, those 2 tickets have become a corner of my heart that I refuse to touch, long sealed away. Now, the 2 tickets in Clara's hand easily ignited his enthusiasm and interest. This stark contrast made me realize that their feelings for each other seem to have already surpassed my presence. Perhaps I am merely a passerby in this story. About an hour later, Gavin's call broke the silence in the room. "Did you not notice the gift on the table?" His voice held a hint of anticipation. "Sure. Well, I saw it. Don't you like it? I remember that it was the blind box you always wanted. I bought you a whole set." "Oh, I haven't had the chance to open it yet." I nodded gently, but there was a bit of turmoil in my heart. I enjoy buying blind boxes, but Gavin often says that I'm too old for that, and that it feels childish. To avoid arguing with him, I've set aside my hobbies and even sent back the ones I got at home to my hometown. "Are you still upset about what happened before?" "I really didn't mean to do it." He started to explain, his tone a bit hurried. I gently interrupted him, saying, "No need to explain, I understand. You and Clara have a great relationship and are friends who share everything." As I said this, I felt a sense of relief, but at the same time I couldn't help but feel a bit distant. On the other end of the line, Gavin was silent for a moment before I finally heard the sound of the call disconnecting. I wondered if he was angry. "Are you still surprised by my calmness?" "But thinking about it, it's really nothing. I don't want someone who isn't worth it to affect my emotions." As night fell, Gavin came home holding a beautifully wrapped bag, and then deliberately threw it in front of me. The bag wasn't set down properly and fell to the ground. As I picked it up, some fragrant cards fell out of the bag. They were beautifully written with the message, "Happy 8th anniversary of our acquaintance." At the end, there was a small heart-shaped design, which made it feel especially warm. Clearly, this was Clara's handiwork. My gaze lingered on the bag. The expensive handmade suit seems to indicate that Clara really put some thought into it. I stood up and placed the suit in Gavin's wardrobe, replacing the one I had given him 2 months ago, and then I put the old suit into a bag and set it in the corner of the living room. I still remember when I gave him the suit, he frowned and said he didn't like wearing suits. In fact, it wasn't that he didn't like them, but rather that he was put off because that one was a gift from me. Gavin frowned as he glanced at the bag in the corner of the living room. "Do you want to throw this away? Alara, can't you just be less stubborn? I've already apologized to you." Gavin sprawled out casually on the couch, his face full of disdain with a sarcastic tone. "You're really so petty." Those words were still sharp. Once I would be consumed by anger, my face turning ugly as I argued relentlessly with Gavin, until he stormed out, leaving me alone to face the cold air. Afterwards, I was always the first to back down, trying hard to make amends, but now I simply respond calmly, "You're thinking too much." Gavin clearly didn't expect my reaction. For a moment, he looked surprised, then furrowed his brow and chose to remain silent. In the end, he slammed the door behind him, leaving a profound silence in the room. I knew he might have expected me to chase after him like before, desperately apologizing in a soft voice. However, this time I didn't chase after him, nor did I plan to comfort him. I went downstairs and threw away that suit before returning to the bedroom. After all, Clara would be there to comfort him. I logged into my long-unused Weibo account, and as soon as I entered, I received a lot of private messages, mostly from my fans asking when I would make a comeback. 3 years later, I posted a Weibo update along with a sketch I had done 6 months ago. Within 10 minutes, comments and retweets came pouring in, and everyone was excited that I was back. My WeChat notification chimed. It was a message from my longtime friend Ivy Hale. She asked me why I suddenly felt like sharing my artwork. Didn't I withdraw from the scene because of Gavin? Did we break up? After a while I replied to her saying yes, we broke up. Ivy responded with just 2 words. Congratulations. I enjoy painting. I was an art student in high school and studied animation design in college. The animation I created upon graduation won a major award. In fact, I received invitations from animation companies abroad, but I chose to stay in Jiangcheng for Gavin and took a job at a small company instead. My daily routine became centered around taking care of his meals, almost like a nanny, always attending to him. No matter how late he goes out for social events, I always get up to make him honey water. My interests and dreams have gradually been overlooked. Unfortunately, despite my efforts, it seems I don't receive the response I deserve. Gavin's attitude towards me is inconsistent, but he remains warm and enthusiastic towards Clara. This made the dream I once envisioned of spending a lifetime with him quietly shatter. Rather than losing myself for him, it's better to love myself a little more. 3 hours later, I unexpectedly received a call from Clara. Alara, how could you take care of Gavin and let him go to the bar alone to drink? On the other end of the line, Clara sounded just like a concerned mistress. I leaned back in the chair, casually twirling the stylus in my hand, and asked nonchalantly, what's wrong? Can't you take care of him? Haven't you always wanted to be responsible for Gavin's situation? Alright, I'll help you out. Take him home and it's up to you how to take care of him. I hung up the phone and continued to doodle on the tablet. I haven't drawn in a long time, so my hand feels a bit clumsy. On my phone, the chat interface with Ivy is still open. Alara, let's start drawing again. I think she's right, it's time for me to live for myself. Before long, I heard the familiar sound of the door opening. Gavin has returned. I ignored him and locked the door to the second bedroom. Ivy works at a well-known gaming company and holds a decent position there. She told me that her company was looking for concept artists and asked if I would be interested in applying for an interview. I was eager to give it a try. The next morning, I didn't get up early as usual to prepare breakfast for Gavin. I didn't get out of bed until after 9, taking my time. I made myself a steamed crab yolk bun, paired with rich milk and fresh fruit. Reflecting on the past, I often revolved around Gavin's tastes, constantly trying to change the menu to suit him. Sometimes what he wanted to eat the day before would change by the next morning. I even had to prepare an extra meal for Clara, feeling like a personal chef at their beck and call, losing a sense of self in the process. However, today this lifestyle of not having to wake up early and not having to consider others' preferences made me feel relaxed and at ease. The sunlight outside the window was particularly bright, making the whole world appear softer and more expansive. The interview went smoothly. Of course, I have to thank the awards I received earlier and the occasional sketches I've done over the years. However, I have been away from this industry for too long, and before joining the company, I need to create a series of concept art for their new game in the next few days. I had turned off my phone during the interview, and it wasn't until I left the company and turned it back on that I noticed an unread message from Gavin on WeChat, but unfortunately, it had already been withdrawn. Just as I was feeling a stir of emotions, the lively chatter in the student group caught my attention. Gavin, who usually rarely speaks up, was particularly active in the group today. He interacted frequently with Clara and shared many photos they had taken together. In several pictures they looked very close. Clara was leaning on Gavin's shoulder while he gently played with her hair, creating a warm and sweet atmosphere. It's clear that they enjoyed a pleasant time taking photos today and shared some happy moments. The classmates in the group became lively, even specifically asking for my opinion on the pictures. I forced a smile and typed a casual response. The effect was good. I could add some on-site pictures when posting on my social media, which would make it even sweeter. However, the chat in the group suddenly fell silent, as if even the air had come to a standstill, and Gavin's name no longer appeared in the chat history. In fact, I have always regarded Gavin as the center of my life. I carefully observe every action of his, and have long understood the intention behind his behavior this time. He deliberately sent me a picture first, then quickly retracted it, hoping to pique my curiosity and prompt me to ask questions, only to later send the picture again to provoke my emotions. However, at that time I was busy with an interview and couldn't pay attention to these messages, which led to his plan failing. So, he shifted the battlefield to the class group, trying to leverage the noise and opinions there to make me even angrier and more jealous, potentially pushing me to confront him impulsively or to have an unnecessary conflict with Clara. Following his usual pattern, he would then accuse me of being petty and apply various forms of pressure on me. At the same time, he would make an effort to support Clara and even invite his friends to mediate. Ultimately, his goal was simply to make me feel as if my self-esteem had been hurt. At that moment, I was filled with the joy of having succeeded in the interview. I felt neither anger nor agitation about those photos, nor did I want to reach out to Gavin for an explanation. I composed myself, put my phone away, and went to the company to submit my resignation letter. Then I returned home and went straight to the guest room. I put my phone on silent and immersed myself in studying the character profiles for the game, preparing for the upcoming drawing task. It wasn't until it got late that I remembered I could order takeout. I picked up my phone and was surprised to see that Gavin had called several times just a few minutes ago. After hesitating for a moment, I decided to call him back. Hello? Why did it take you so long to answer? Are you working overtime? On the other end of the line, Gavin's voice sounded much gentler than usual. I remained calm and asked, "Is there something you need?" "My parents would like to invite you to dinner tonight," Gavin said, a hint of anticipation in his voice. I originally wanted to refuse, but considering how good Gavin's parents had always been to me, I thought maybe this dinner could be an opportunity for us to clarify our relationship and part ways peacefully. After all, when faced with something that cannot be salvaged, letting go and allowing it to drift away is the best release for both parties. When I walked into the restaurant, I was taken aback by the scene before me. Clara was actually here as well, and she was sitting very close to Gavin, chatting happily with his parents, creating an atmosphere that felt like a family gathering. I felt somewhat out of place, as if I were an unwelcome guest. I thought to myself that perhaps this was a carefully arranged meeting by Gavin. If that's the case, facing the situation might actually be a good thing. "Alara, you're here." Gavin's mother recognized me at a glance and greeted me warmly, breaking the brief silence. I smiled gently and walked up slowly. Clara still stood there, sandwiched between Gavin and me, even looking at me with a provocative gaze. This scene felt familiar. I knew she might use the same old tactic, trying to anger me and play the innocent victim once again to garner sympathy, especially from Gavin. But this time I chose to ignore her. I was tired of the endless arguments, so I quietly pulled up a chair and sat down at a distance from them. Gavin seemed a bit surprised by my move, and his expression changed. His parents exchanged glances, their expressions complex, occasionally casting inquisitive looks in my direction, and the atmosphere became subtly charged. As the waiter continued to serve dishes, the silence was broken by the enticing aroma of the food. Gavin's mother gently picked up a shrimp and placed it in my bowl, smiling as she said, "Alara, you don't look too well. Here, have some more to take care of yourself." "Thank you, Auntie." I smiled faintly and lowered my head to eat, but I could sense a hint of jealousy and dissatisfaction in Clara's gaze toward me. Last night, I pulled an all-nighter to prepare for my interview. This morning, I relied on a cup of iced Americano and a cup of flat white to perk myself up. Now, I feel both physically and mentally exhausted, and my hunger is becoming more pronounced. "Alara, dear." Clara finally couldn't hold back, her tone a bit sharp. While pretending to care for Gavin by helping him with his food, she said, "Look at you, just focused on your own meal. Even if there was a misunderstanding, you shouldn't act like this in front of your elders." Upon hearing this, Gavin's parents immediately tensed up. Gavin's mother rushed to ask, "What happened? Do you have a conflict? Please tell me, what is it about?" Gavin's father also set down his chopsticks, his expression becoming serious. Seeing this, Clara quickly took over the conversation and said, "Actually, it's no big deal. It's just that Gavin hasn't been accompanying me to watch the sunrise lately, so I've been feeling a bit upset." As soon as she said this, Gavin's parents visibly relaxed and began to take turns advising me, telling me not to get upset over small matters and that we could go together another day. Gavin nodded in agreement beside me. I forced a smile and said, "Auntie and Uncle, I'm not angry at all, I was just a bit tired from staying up late last night." "Oh, that's understandable. That's good to hear," Gavin's parents replied, visibly relieved. After that, a subtle yet awkward silence fell over the dining table. Although Clara tried to find a topic to break the ice, Gavin's parents seemed uninterested in continuing the conversation, and it quickly ended, leaving the atmosphere once again cold. I focused on the food in front of me, while Gavin's parents occasionally served me more dishes. Gavin remained silent about the situation that was about to unfold, only glancing at me out of the corner of his eye from time to time. I couldn't help but feel puzzled, since he had specifically brought Clara here. Wasn't he looking for a clear outcome? Why was he hesitating and reluctant to speak? Did he want me to be the one to initiate the breakup in this situation so he could maintain a good image in front of Clara? After dinner, this delicate gathering was coming to an end. As we were about to part ways, Gavin's dad pulled him aside and whispered a few words. Then, Gavin's mom took me aside as well, her eyes filled with concern and expectation. She said earnestly, "Alara, Gavin can be a bit stubborn at times, and I hope you can be more tolerant of him and not hold it against him." Tolerance and understanding. I quietly pondered these words, feeling a mix of emotions inside. All along, I thought that someday I would gain Gavin's understanding and response, but reality made me realize I was mistaken. After they left, Clara suddenly broke into a relaxed smile and proposed, "Why don't we go sing karaoke? Let's invite a few more classmates and unwind a bit." "You all go ahead, I have something to take care of." I waved my hand and took out my phone to call a ride. After a satisfying meal, I decided to head back to my little home to enjoy a peaceful evening, not wanting to be affected by others' emotions anymore, and choosing to treat myself a little better. Whenever I thought about going with Gavin, it always made me feel a bit uneasy. That day it was pouring rain and Gavin called me. He said he was drunk and couldn't get back, asking me to come pick him up. He drove away, and it was pouring rain outside. I couldn't reach the car, so I had no choice but to ride my electric bike into the rain. Even though the road was slippery and I was soaked to the skin, I still worried about him. However, when I finally arrived in a messy state, I discovered it was just a game of truth or dare, and his friends laughed at me, which made me feel really upset. What hurt even more was that he didn't say a word to explain himself, and in that moment we got into an argument. Since then, whenever Clara invited Gavin, I always opposed it, but to him, my worry seemed like an overreaction. She always used the excuse of just a gathering of friends to dismiss my concerns. But can a large group of people really cover up everything? Obviously not. It wasn't until I saw the video Clara shared on her social media, where she was singing a duet with Gavin, that I realized the truth. The look they exchanged was filled with intimacy and sweetness, and in that moment my heart completely sank. Although the video was short, it shattered the fragile trust between us. Gavin and I had another intense argument. Clara suggested going, clearly trying to put me in a difficult position, but I didn't care anymore. Then Clara turned to Gavin and said with a smile, "Since Alara isn't going, let's go." Gavin unexpectedly shook his head and said he didn't want to go because he was tired. "Huh, Gavin, didn't you say your favorite thing was singing with me? You never used to turn down my invitations before, so why this time?" Clara's voice was filled with confusion and disappointment, and there was even a hint of grievance on her face. In the past, during similar moments, Gavin would have softened, but this time he firmly said, "Clara, stop it. I really need to rest. Let's plan for another day." Although Clara was not very happy, she compromised and said they would talk about it another day. With her brow furrowed, she occasionally glanced back while walking, clearly feeling reluctant inside. Gavin's insistence surprised me, and even more astonishing was his initiative to explain the encounter with Clara, stating that she was not someone I had invited on purpose but just a coincidence. Such an explanation was rare. In the past, she never bothered to clarify misunderstandings and even treated my inquiries as unreasonable complaints. Now that he was taking the initiative to explain, I felt a bit strange, but I didn't want to dig deeper into it. I quietly sat in the car and closed my eyes, letting the disturbances of the outside world fade away. I couldn't focus on Gavin's words anymore. He softly called my name. Alara, wake up, we've arrived home. Hearing his voice, I gradually came to. When I opened my eyes and saw his gentle smile, I realized that I had been cradled by him on the sofa. Are you tired? You should go to the room and rest. No, I still have work to do. I got up, walked around her, and went to the guest room to continue designing the original artwork. Soon, the door was gently pushed open, and Gavin came in with a steaming cup of milk, placing it beside my desk. Drinking some milk at night is good for the body. This used to be my nightly concern for him, but now, hearing it come from his mouth brings back memories and pain from the past. I remember that night when the milk I had prepared for him ended up being the trigger for his anger. While he was playing a game with Clara, he accidentally knocked over the milk, and the sound that followed made him erupt in anger towards me. The cup shattered at his feet, and our relationship seemed to suffer a crack. He turned to Clara, speaking softly to her, and it felt like a sharp blade cutting through the last remnants of hope in my heart. Since then, that warm cup of milk had never appeared between us again. Just as I was lost in my thoughts, Gavin's phone suddenly rang. It was Clara calling, interrupting my memories. Gavin, I've fallen and twisted my ankle. Is it serious? I could see the concern on Gavin's face. I don't know, Gavin, can you take me to the hospital? Clara's voice was filled with tears. Okay, just wait for me. Gavin replied briefly before hanging up the phone. He then turned to me, as if he wanted to say something. Clara knows you should go. I gently interrupted him, my tone betraying a hint of calmness. Gavin seemed somewhat taken aback by my reaction, and after a few seconds of silence he said, I'll take her to the hospital first and be back soon. I understood clearly in my heart that this was just another instance of Clara using a minor illness to garner sympathy. It had become her usual tactic. She had once made Gavin care for her attentively for a long time due to a slight cold. Yet when I was hospitalized for an appendectomy, he only took a quick glance at me, said a few casual words, and then left. In contrast, I stayed by Gavin's side almost constantly when he was unwell, keeping him company throughout the night. Love is a two-way journey. If one person's heart gradually grows cold to the point of despair, then that relationship may truly be at its end. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight streamed into the room, Gavin walked in carefully with breakfast in hand, a smile on his face. He gently said, Look, I brought you your favorite tofu pudding and crab roe buns. Let's go to work together. I opened my eyes, feeling a sense of relief, and replied faintly, I've already resigned. The sentence was like a stone thrown into a calm lake, and Gavin's expression froze as he asked in surprise, What? Why didn't you discuss it with me? I turned around, our eyes met, and with a smile I retorted, Didn't you say you weren't interested in my work at all? I walked toward the window, gently pulled aside the curtain, and warm sunlight immediately filled the room. Gavin was taken aback, his eyes displaying a mix of complicated emotions. He parted his lips to speak but found himself momentarily unable to respond. Memories rushed back to me as I recalled the time I returned home feeling wronged, eager to share my experiences of unfairness and setbacks at work, longing for a bit of comfort. However, he was engrossed in his game and coldly interrupted me, expressing no interest in my work-related issues, which made me question my own abilities. In that moment, faced with his confusion and shock, I felt an unexpected calmness inside. Taking a deep breath, I stood in the sunlight, looked him in the eye, and slowly said, Gavin, let's break up. Since he had never brought it up himself, I decided it was time for me to end this unbalanced relationship. Gavin's breakfast suddenly fell from his hands, making a crisp sound that broke the morning's tranquility. I realize I neglected to watch the sunrise with you. That's my fault. Let's both take a moment to calm down. There was a sense of urgency in his tone, and his gaze was somewhat evasive. I understood very well. Gavin, don't you think there are too many problems between us that can't be resolved? I'm running late, so I'll leave first. Gavin interrupted me, turned around quickly, and left, shutting the door with a loud bang as if he wanted to leave all his troubles outside. I sighed and let him go. After all, we would break up sooner or later. However, in the days that followed, Gavin's behavior started to change subtly. At noon, he unexpectedly ordered takeout for me, and in the evening, he came home early to cook dinner himself. Such gestures were unimaginable in the past. I recalled Gavin's cooking skills, which had always been outstanding. I remembered that when he was pursuing Clara in college, he would carefully prepare various breakfasts every day just to win her favor. However, Clara did not appreciate this gesture and often threw the breakfasts away carelessly. But Gavin never cared and continued to pursue it with enthusiasm. At that time, I silently admired Gavin, watching him give everything for Clara, and I felt a sense of regret and confusion in my heart. When Clara went abroad, their relationship came to an end. Gavin often walked alone late at night, and his loneliness and sadness made my heart ache. Out of concern for him, I often found excuses to stay by his side, gradually fostering an unspoken understanding between us. Finally, during a warm gathering, fueled by a bit of alcohol and courage, I opened my heart to Gavin, expressing the feelings I had kept hidden for so long. I was pleasantly surprised when he responded with deep affection, almost without hesitation. From that moment on, we embarked on a sweet romantic journey, sharing many joyful and warm days together. We dreamed of our future, meticulously planning every detail of our wedding, and even looking forward to names for our future children. However, our blissful time was short-lived. Clara's return came like a sudden storm, shattering our tranquility and happiness. Gavin seems to be drawn to some kind of force, and his connection with Clara is growing stronger, while I feel him gradually distancing himself and becoming cold. His attitude toward marriage has quietly changed, and he even chose to avoid the crucial moment when we were supposed to get our marriage certificate. When I confronted him about it, he actually defended himself by saying, "You're putting pressure on me," which made me start to doubt whether our relationship was as solid as I had hoped. I understand that Gavin's inner struggles and confusion are largely due to Clara. Now that he suddenly seems to treat me better, could it really just be out of guilt? No, he just couldn't bear to lose a mother who always cared for him. Gavin became very strange. He showed more concern for me. After I rejected the fruit platter he sent for the 10th time, I finally couldn't help but ask him, "Gavin, what exactly do you want? You know this is bothering me, right? I can't draw without distractions. Can you go lie down on your bed?" Gavin's eyes showed a hint of sadness as he said, "I want to wait for you to sleep together." I picked up the tablet pen again and replied, "I've been in the spare bedroom for a month. I'm very busy, please don't disturb me." Gavin looked at me, unresponsive, with deep disappointment in his eyes, and softly said, "I'm sorry, Alara. I didn't realize how painful it feels to be ignored." After saying that, he slowly turned around, his back appearing very lonely as he gradually disappeared from view. Only now do I understand. It feels a bit late. I picked up my phone and contacted Ivy, asking her to help me find a new place, planning to move out once I finish my performance evaluation at work. After a night of hard work, I completed the original artwork ahead of schedule, and excitedly submitted it to the company. The general manager gave high praise for my work, immediately inviting me to the company to sign a contract, and promising to pay me twice the market rate. This was undoubtedly a great recognition of my abilities. After signing the contract, I invited Ivy and a few friends to go out and celebrate. I wore a smile on my face for a long time. I hadn't experienced such pure joy in a while. I remembered how Gavin used to always oppose me attending gatherings like this, thinking it was a waste of time and suggesting that I should stay home to study cooking and prepare meals for him. On my way home, I unexpectedly ran into Clara at the doorstep. She was anxiously pressing the doorbell, repeatedly calling out Gavin's name, clearly showing her concern for him. However, the inside of the house was silent, with no response. I felt a bit puzzled since in the past, Clara only needed to send a message, and Gavin would immediately go to see her. This sudden change caught me off guard. Seeing that there was no reaction from inside the house, Clara vented her frustration towards me, frowning as she asked, Alara, what's going on with you? Why won't you let Gavin go out? Are you trying to restrict his freedom? I have to tell you that's illegal. I gave her a disdainful look. Do you want to see Gavin? Alright, I'll open the door for you. I calmly took out the key from my pocket, turned it gently, and the door opened instantly. Clara's expression froze in that moment. She clearly didn't expect me to respond so calmly, especially since we had always been tense and confrontational during our previous meetings. However, at this moment I felt quite clear in my heart, my relationship with Gavin was already understood. In the living room, Gavin sat on the sofa, his face showing the same surprise as Clara's. He clearly didn't expect me to be so forgiving about Clara's arrival. Clara rushed into the living room, and as Gavin stepped aside, she slipped and fell onto the carpet. Gavin, what is the meaning of this? Why are you treating me like this? Why won't you see me? Clara asked him with red eyes, trying to step forward to hold his arm. Is it because Alara won't let you see me? Gavin coldly replied, I've made it very clear. Don't bother me anymore. Can't you understand? Stay away from me. He pushed Clara away without mercy. Clara left with red eyes. Soon after, Gavin's attitude changed significantly. He smiled at me and said that dinner was ready. I told him I had already eaten. After saying that, I went straight to the bedroom to start organizing my clothes. Gavin followed me in and asked curiously if I had found a job. Why are you suddenly packing your bags? Are you going on a business trip? I paused and calmly answered, I'm moving. The new place is closer to the office, so it will be more convenient for my commute. What? Gavin widened his eyes in surprise and took a moment to process what I had said. Are you moving out? Where are you going? I don't agree with that. I ignored him and just kept my head down sorting my clothes. Although it was actually Gavin who made me feel lost and distant, he blamed me, making me feel like I was always the one responsible in this relationship. I don't agree to break up. Gavin frowned, his eyes seeming a bit red. His voice was somewhat choked as he spoke. I sighed and remembered your words. Love is a mutual choice between two people, while a breakup can be one-sided. Seeing Gavin like this, I no longer felt the tenderness I had before. All I wanted was to end this relationship as quickly as possible. That was just a careless remark. Gavin's voice was deep and trembled. Indeed, people often express their true, long-hidden thoughts when they're angry or feeling down. But at this moment that didn't matter anymore. I gave Gavin one last gentle embrace as a farewell to our beautiful times together. When I opened the door again, Gavin was crouched at the doorway of the guest room, like an abandoned puppy. He stumbled to his feet and grabbed my suitcase, preventing me from leaving. Alara, I know I made a mistake. I didn't handle my relationship with Clara well. The only person I love is you. I'm begging you. Please give me another chance. I swear I will treat you well, okay? I shook my head, took a deep breath and calmly said, Is it really because you couldn't find the right balance? No, you were just taking advantage of my fondness and love for you. You want my unconditional tenderness and companionship, yet you can't let go of that so-called ideal person. My tone revealed clear disappointment. Even though Clara had hurt you before, you still chose to be close to her. From the moment you first entertained doubts in your heart, you had already betrayed our feelings, and thus lost the right to have my love again. My words strike at the heart of the issue. So what should I do for you to forgive me? Gavin asked me this almost impossible question with a choked voice. In truth, no matter what, it's just not possible. Just as he once told me that he wouldn't give up his connection with Clara, my response is the same now. I snatched the box from his hands and shut the door on him in the past. I had thought that moving and starting a new job would allow me to completely break free from my history with Gavin, hoping he would gradually let go and no longer affect my life. However, Gavin's reaction surprised me. He kept calling me non-stop. I chose to remain silent, letting the phone ring without answering. Soon after, he started sending me countless messages, filled with regret and longing for me. In response to this, I decided to firmly block all his contact information for the sake of my peace and future, hoping to completely sever ties with the past and get my life back on track. However, Gavin did not give up on pursuing me. He somehow found out the address of my company. Every morning, he was the first to arrive outside the office, full of enthusiasm and effort, bringing a carefully prepared breakfast. Even the lunch boxes were shaped like hearts, every detail reflecting his thoughtful intention. However, I was used to having meals at home and never accepted his kindness, nor did I respond in any way. At noon, Gavin's concern showed no signs of stopping. She would arrange for the front desk to send a brightly colored box of fruit, and occasionally she would add a beautiful bouquet of roses. By the afternoon, she would order me a rich cup of coffee, accompanied by a warm card filled with apologies for the past and hopes for the future. Dear, please allow me to apologize to you with this cup of coffee. I hope it helps you relax and enjoy a pleasant afternoon. Love, Gavin. In the evening, Gavin still didn't give up despite my indifference. He continued to invite me to dinner and even followed me down the long street. His persistence put a lot of pressure on me. This situation has sparked a lot of discussions and speculation within the company. Although the management expressed understanding and did not blame anyone, the rumors still troubled me. Fortunately, the success of a project allowed me to temporarily escape this and take a few days off. I took the opportunity to book a ticket back to my hometown, partly to spend time with my elderly parents and enjoy the warmth of family. On the other hand, I also hope to be able to honestly tell them about my breakup with Gavin. After listening to me, my parents offered me deep understanding and comfort. Their words were like a warm spring breeze, gradually dispelling the clouds in my heart. They told me that life can never be completely peaceful, and the same goes for emotions. It's through experiencing storms that we become stronger. However, just when I thought everything could begin anew, Gavin unexpectedly appeared in my hometown. That day, the sky was overcast and rain poured down. Gavin arrived, drenched and holding a carefully prepared gift, as if he had just escaped from a downpour. He stood at the entrance of my house and without hesitation walked toward my parents, then knelt heavily before them. "Uncle, Aunt, I'm sorry." His voice trembled, mixed with uncontrollable sobs, as tears mingled with the rain that quietly fell. He said, "I was so immature, I didn't cherish Alara properly, nor did I fulfill my responsibilities as her boyfriend." Every word he spoke was filled with guilt and regret, sounding like deep-rooted pain. "I once promised you that I would wholeheartedly love and care for her, but I have failed to keep that promise. My parents have worked hard throughout their lives, living simply and kindly." When faced with Gavin's sincere apology, their eyes reflected pain and helplessness. All they could do was sigh. "Child, please get up," my mother gently urged, her eyes filled with reluctance. As for me standing by, I coldly said, "Get up. You are being meaningless, it's over between us." However, Gavin seemed not to hear my words. He remained kneeling there, starting to blame himself and repeatedly saying, "It's all my fault, I deserve this, it's all my doing." My parents were taken aback, not expecting Gavin to react this way. The two of them rushed forward trying to stop him. However, Gavin was immersed in his own world, showing no regard for their attempts to dissuade him, and continued to blame himself. I couldn't help but furrow my brow, my tone filled with a hint of anger and helplessness as I said, "Gavin, what you're doing is only going to make me more frustrated with you. Have you ever thought about what my parents and I will do after you leave? I don't want to become the gossip of the neighbors, do you understand?" I sighed and added, "Gavin, this is really selfish of you." My words seemed to strike a chord with him. He stopped what he was doing, fell silent for a moment, and then reluctantly stood up. He glanced at me, his eyes filled with complex emotions, reluctance, despair, and a hint of relief. Then he turned and walked into the rain without hesitation. However, his body clearly couldn't withstand such a blow. After just a few steps, he crumpled to the ground, losing consciousness. I immediately called an ambulance and informed his parents. Shortly afterward, Gavin's parents arrived, repeatedly promising to take him away and not to disturb me again. 3 months later, while browsing the news, I happened to come across Gavin's name again. This time, the incident was particularly shocking. Gavin had been attacked and stabbed 3 times, and he was currently receiving treatment in the hospital. Reports indicated that the mastermind behind this attack was none other than Clara, who he had longed for. Clara had tried multiple times to meet Gavin but had been unsuccessful, So she chose to wait for a long time downstairs at his building. One late night, she finally saw Gavin, but his response to her persistence was very cold and unresponsive. Clara's sense of self-esteem and possessiveness exploded at this moment. She pulled out a fruit knife that she had hidden in her pocket, shouting that if she couldn't have Gavin, she would face everything with him. However, after she actually hurt Gavin, Clara panicked and fled the scene, ultimately being quickly apprehended by the police. As the investigation progressed, her true nature gradually came to light. She was actually burdened with a huge debt and had deceived many men out of their money. Looking back on Gavin's blind infatuation with Clara is both poignant and ironic. Love is supposed to be beautiful and pure, but in this relationship, it has become twisted and unbearable. I chose not to visit Gavin in his situation because from the moment I decided to let go, his future, regardless of whether it is good or bad, was no longer something I needed to concern myself with. The kite has been released from its string. Its flight and destination will be determined by the wind and the sky. Half a month passed quietly. One day the front desk informed me that I had received a mysterious package, and out of curiosity I took it home. Gently opening the parcel, I found only a simple voice recorder resting inside. I pressed the play button, and Gavin's familiar yet weakened voice gradually emerged, each word striking heavily on my heart. My dearest, when you hear this recording, I am no longer the person who can run freely. His voice was filled with guilt and regret. I understand that I can no longer hope for your love, nor do I deserve your care. If only I could have held on to my original intentions and not been swayed by Clara's sweet words. If only I could have cherished every moment between us more and not taken your love for granted. If only I could have stood in your shoes to better understand and support you. However, life has no if-onlys, and I have paid a heavy price for my mistakes. His words revealed a deep sense of despair and helplessness. You are so wonderful that you deserve all the happiness in the world. Please forgive my departure, and believe that you will meet someone who can walk alongside you and cherish you. After hearing those words, I threw the recorder deep into the drawer. Even now, Gavin's self-righteous and belated feelings disgust me. People tend to only learn to cherish what they have after losing it. Because love comes too easily, we often fail to cherish it while we have it. Those who do not understand how to appreciate love will ultimately lose it. The sun is shining brightly, and my future is also very promising.